Hey, Justin, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Nice to have a familiar face on the podcast, and or voice, I should say, because we couldn't get video set up in time for this one. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. Should I just release the video version anyway and just put like the animated audio bubbles? Maybe I could use Adobe to like move your mouth for the whole thing.
Or these like a photo works. Whatever works. Probably better at looking at a photo than my actual face. So,
and I was saying I was getting used to doing these like really not organized episodes. The last two, I don't know if audio listeners noticed that the quality was not the same, but like I was in hotel rooms setting it up minutes before, but it mostly worked. I don't know. It trained me to be much faster about my podcast setup.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
At least there's that.
When we first started, we filmed 3 in a day, which was a terrible idea.
No, I think that's a great idea. There's that.
We were all like sweaty and couldn't walk anymore, and co-host is not used to sitting in front of the camera for an hour. Whereas in the past, I've done that a few times because of terrible A-rolls. But
well, it may not be a great idea for the content, but in terms of I don't know, just getting stuff out. Like there's that
the casual aspect.
Podcast entrepreneur show that I don't listen to. Podcaster on Fire. What's it called? Do you know what I'm talking about? He does all these interviews and he has a ton of subscribers, but his whole thing is he like wakes up really early on Monday morning and records 7 episodes and then releases an episode every day.
7.
I'm like, you know what? That's not such a maybe he does 5. I don't know. I don't listen to the show, but I was just like reading about his production schedule. I'm like, man, if I worked that hard, maybe I'd be in a different place right now.
For YouTube, I think I used back when I was like maybe 14 or 15 when we were just reviewing like iPhone cases and iPad cases. I think I used to do that on Saturdays where I'd wake up and I'd have a bin of stuff that we reviewed and that we haven't, and we'd go through all 10 of them at once and just do a one take and then just cut record, and then the next product comes in. I mean, they're all pretty bad, and the videos were like 3 minutes long because I don't think watch time was even a thing back then. At least YouTube didn't really measure or talk about it.
Well, how old were you when you were starting? Because I was watching one of your recent videos, and you inserted a little clip of you doing a teenager recording, which it's just amazing. Like all I can hear is your voice. I can't see you, but you sound like a teenager, and now you're a grown up, and you've been doing it all the way in between. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I think I was first video was probably when I was it was 2010, so I would have been 12 years old, I think. And the first year I was only making like 2 or 3 videos and just like borrowing the family's camera. I remember the first product, the thing that I really got into YouTube for was when I was just very barely interested in tech. I didn't really grow up having a huge interest in it, but I remember seeing the iPod Touch, and I was like watching videos of people downloading all these apps, the popcorn app, the fake beer drinking apps, and all the stuff that used the gyroscope for the first time. And so I saw people were getting like free cases for the iPhone, and I just thought that was kind of cool. So after watching so many videos, after buying the first iPod, I decided just to start making a few videos of it. But I think the first year was just like general unboxings and stuff. But the second year, when I bought the iPod that had a camera on it, I remember filming the box because I had to use the iPod that I was talking about to film the video. So it was just
it's like a fake unboxing.
There's nothing in the box, so I just had the box in front of me, and I talked about the iPod, the specs. And back then I studied specs like very heavily because I was only buying one device a year, did like iPhone cases for a couple of years and that kind of thing, and then slowly moved over to smartphones and tried to survive in the industry for as long as possible and just adapt and change and find new ways to hopefully keep it exciting.
Even though the whole YouTube space has totally changed in that period, I'd still say doing something like that is the right approach if somebody just doesn't know what to do and is too intimidated to get started. It's like, just start pulling stuff out of drawers and just talk about it. Like, don't worry too much about the quality. Don't worry if you only get, 50 views, and then, a year from now you're getting 200 views. Like, that's what it takes.
For sure.
Is kind of the truth. Like, it is still a grind. So, start off wherever you are and keep going.
For sure.
But let's also talk about what's happening right now a little bit. This is being recorded just before the Apple event, which we just found out about. It's going to be on the 15th, and that always makes for bad timing to record an episode. So we can't talk about anything current. Like, I don't want to talk about rumors at all because, by the time half the people listen to this, it'll already be expired, and we will know what was announced. because right now we don't even know what type. Like, is it going to be computers? Is it going to be phones? It's still all a little bit up in the air. So this is all in a pre-world before the new our time of awakening is has happened. So it's like one thing that's on my mind that I thought would be good to talk about is like a general topic is desk setups, which I've talked about once before. Jonathan Morrison came on, and since he does some pretty great ones, we had a bit of a conversation about that. But it's something that you do really well, and I'm working on a new desk setup video as well. So I don't know, synergy, right?
Yeah, for sure. Desk setups are a lot of fun. I feel like I've done them for quite a few years now, but especially in the recent years, when you look at the channel right now, the phones don't do that well on the channel. So it's either hit or miss with that. And I feel like desk setup is where the channel has its kind of what it's known for. I think every channel has to be known for its perspective or something. And I know I'm not known for tech. It's simply because there's people who are much better at researching technology and are able to put it through much more extensive testing than I have the energy for. Whereas like a desk setup, a makeover, or like a home interior thing gets me far more excited than a new phone that comes out. But at the end of the day,
I think you're also, that's like a niche that's less well represented. There are more people already on YouTube that know the specs.
Yeah.
And there's less people that understand aesthetics and design and how to make things look look and feel nice and be technologically savvy. That's not as common.
There's a few ways to go about it. Like I know some of them are very tech focused, and then others are more design focused. And trying to find that medium, I think, is where I try to provide the most value. I know some of the setups are definitely not as practical as they could be. But yeah, setup makeover's been a fun one to do this year. At some point, I got to come up with new ideas because there's only so many ways you could put an IKEA Alex and a Carlby together. And I think one video that I'm working on right now is my personal desk. And we did an initial video, which was kind of walking through the process of what it looks like before, and also what we chose and how we put it together, and split it up into a 2-part series. So even though I'd been doing like setup makeovers for the last 2 to 3 years, and I think we're about 7 or 8 episodes in now, and we're going to move over to living rooms as well, I personally had a pretty bad desk setup in office, admittingly. It was always just like a mess. And
well, this is the side of it I want to talk about. Like I want to talk about the reality of it, because that doesn't work as well for a video, right? Because in the video it has to look good,
for sure.
Otherwise nobody's going to click on it. If people can see the mess, they're like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, because his desk isn't empty and completely, minimal. Whereas the reality is so much more in use, and like in my case anyway. Maybe everybody else has a clean desk except for me, but like there is constantly crap coming on and off of my desk that I was just using, and now it's just sitting there waiting to be put away. And that's like a lot of the life cycle about it, or even the reality of my last desk tour was where I actually work a lot, which is a very small desk in a former closet.
It looks
in
great,
my apartment.
though.
So, well, thanks, but it's very limited, right? Like I can't do a like blowout desk setup there, and I can't change. There's only like, I don't know if I could even do another version in that same space, because it's how much could I change it? At the studio, I have lots of room, but I don't edit here that often. So the next one I will record here, but it won't be my setup that I'm using all the time. It'll be more like, here's what I wish I was editing on.
For sure. That's what I plan to do as well, actually. Once the loft is done, the reason why I kind of revamp my entire home setup is just so I can have like kind of the main office here and utilize all the space, and then have like a work desk at the new place. But I can always come home and just still like have that kind of home setup that we can go back to. And I think like the other challenge is space with setups. A lot of times you got to find a spot to use, or you got to shuffle up all your existing stuff. And as YouTubers, you have to be willing to kind of move things around to film. But at the same time, it's nice to have a setup that just, doesn't have to be touched. So you can set it up exactly the way you like, from the perspective of how it's most effective for work, as opposed to this is going to be best for filming.
So is there anything that's universal advice, like regardless what you're doing, if whether you're programming or designing or editing video, that like this is a direction everybody could go in and they might enjoy their desk setup a little bit more? Or is it like everyone's different?
Yeah, I think everyone is different in what they look for and what they need, but a very universal option I've noticed recently is adding a bit of wood to the setup can change it a lot. And I'm someone who was like all like black and white setups and everything, but I think 2 episodes this year we did a wood related setup where we bought the kitchen countertop, which I think it's called the Carlby, and also added the Alex jars underneath. And I feel like that one's very universal because it gives you a lot of space to work with, assuming that there is space. It's also customizable. You can cut the desk down by 10 inches, 20 inches if you'd like. And the Alex drawer gives you 10 drawers full of storage that you can just put inside. And with like the cable channels and everything that you can add to the back, I feel like that was kind of like my go-to setup. And just based on the numbers, I think the 2 episodes combined did about 1.7 million. It completely blew every other sort of setup design that we've done out of the water.
I should take a look at that one. I didn't watch that video yet, so I should see what that actually is. Because I did actually, this is funny because I finally caught up with my previous, an old Dream Desk video I did with Jonathan Morris, like the one where...
Yeah, I remember that.
The day we recorded him on the podcast, he did a video of my photo setup. And there's a standing desk that I couldn't find when we recorded it.
Sam Elkins came through.
Exactly, just to record it. Like he tried to buy one and it was going to arrive late.
Yeah.
So we had to borrow one from Sam Elkins. And anyway, it was a dream. Like while we were recording, like this is great. This is what I want. I'm going to get this when I get home. And then once I got home, I couldn't find the desk. Anyway, update. Now I'm sitting at it right now. I finally found it at Home Depot.
I saw that. Yeah.
So that was a bit of a dream desk come true. But for me, it's become my like YouTube station, not my workstation. And one thing that really helped, speaking of wood, is I refinished it as well. So the version in Jonathan's video was also refinished. Sam, I guess, had a similar idea of staining it darker.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a tip for anybody that plans to do YouTube. If you get one of the like a lighter wood, you're going to get all of the reflection from that when you light it. And the problem is that it turns your skin yellow or like kind of a greeny yellow compared to if you had a white table, then it's just bouncing white light. Black table. Problem with black tables for YouTube, by the way, is you see dust on it a lot. So it's much harder to keep it clean. But then wood is like the perfect balance because it can get scuffed up and it's still fine. Like it looks good on camera. And as long as it's not a light color, it won't bounce that back into your face. So
I find the white Linman desk has been like an okay option. I think for the price at $10 to $20, depending on where you live, you really can't go wrong with it. But one issue I noticed, I think, I feel like we talked about it a while back, but it was the fact that it's so hollow that the sound just like bounces and resonates through the entire thing. And I found that to be a bigger issue than the reflections. So the desk I use right now, I just built a standing desk as well. It's an L-shaped. It goes all the way around, and it's like a combination of the old desk I had, which was from, I believe, Bow Concept, and then I added the IKEA Linman countertop, or not the Linman, the Carlby kitchen countertop on the other side. So it has like a walnut side, and then it has a white side, and the white side is where I have like the monitor and everything, and the other side is where Trevor works at the moment until we move over to the new office. But it's like an L-shaped unit that can go up and down, and I've been pretty happy with it. I personally don't use the standing function as much as I probably should, but for filming at least, it's really nice to be able to just press the button and have the desk go up and down as opposed to trying to adjust the tripod and everything, which for a heavy camera setup can often be a thing. And I was talking to Random Frank P, and he was saying the same, like it's kind of like a mini hack for YouTubers to just get a standing desk and use that for your cinematic movements or changing angles.
Yeah. I've seen Jesse Driftwood did that a few times. That is kind of a hilarious effect, but super smart. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely I'd support that idea of like solid wood being over hollow. That's part of the upgrade that will be in my video is that previously I was using the default hollow IKEA white ones that are like $20. Okay, so I was using that you've memorized the whole catalog, whereas I don't remember it. I was using that for years. We had a few of them upstairs, and we basically upgraded them to the nice version of the same thing from EQ3. So they're just like, you can't even tell that we swapped them out. The size is almost exactly the same, but they're good. And I do feel the difference. So I don't know. It's very appealing to always go to IKEA for everything, but not all IKEA furniture is created the same, right? Some of it really is very wobbly.
Yeah.
And that's what I was using. Yes. Yeah. So I was using that for my YouTubing table before as well. And there's so much wobble to it. So every time I put my hands down, the whole thing would shake and vibrate. Having that stability really, it feels pretty nice. And it also feels like your computer's not going to fall to the ground. Not that it ever does. Like the IKEA ones don't collapse, but the confidence feels nice.
Yeah,
anyway.
I filmed my buddy who runs we filmed his desk setup last year, and it ended up being the one that ended up doing better than the other ones. I thought it was like a pretty average, simple setup, and he admitted that as well. But it got about a million views, and the problem with that was he had the longest version of the white lemon desk, and he had an ultra wide in the middle with a Woo Audio WA7 audio amp, and every single comment, which may have driven the views up, was that the desk was bending a lot.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So you need like a support in the middle, like an extra pole.
Yeah, but even then, it's like, I feel like at that size, the recommendation that I've been giving lately is just to get the Carlby. The kitchen countertop, it's like quite a bit more solid, and it looks great, and it looks like real wood. I think it's some sort of veneer, but it comes in two different colors. It comes in a light version and also a dark version, and both of them I think look pretty good. Personally, I went with the walnut one, but we've used both for setup makeover. So I think in 2015 or 2014, it was very popular. A lot of people were doing the Carlby and Alex combo. And I feel like even now it's a great option. And the total desk setup is about, I'd say $300, give or take, for the entire thing.
This episode is brought to you by the Intrazone by Microsoft SharePoint. If you're looking for a new show to listen to, the Intrazone is a bi-weekly podcast with conversations and interviews on how Microsoft SharePoint, OneDrive, and related tech can work for you. You'll hear from guest experts behind the scenes and out in the field so you can see how SharePoint fits into your everyday work life to easily share and manage content, knowledge, and applications. Each show covers a bunch of segments like news and announcements, a focused topic of the week, guest perspectives, FAQs of the week, and upcoming events. And so that you have an idea of what to expect, I want to tell you about some of the topics that you might be interested in from recent episodes. They've discussed working from home, the thing that's on so many of our minds right now, and also figuring out an intelligent intranet for your organization, which I mean is very challenging. Intranets are rarely intelligent, so if you can make it work, that's a big deal. And they also did an episode about APIs, teamwork. You should go give it a try. So go and listen now. Just search for the Intrazone in whatever podcast app you're using. You probably have one open right now. So just search for INTRAZONE or just click the link in the show notes. So go and check it out. Thanks again to the Intrazone for their support of the show. What do you really think of the ultra-wide monitors? You're primarily a Mac user, right? Like I think you're using an XDR.
I am using the XDR now. Thanks to Apple. They let me try that out. I was very ultra-wide. I was using ultra-wides from the 34-inch to the 38-inch, and I love the ultra-wide. And the other day when my friend came in from Vancouver to help me film, he was like, I need to edit. So I let him use the 38-inch in the dining room, and I was like sort of jealous. I sort of missed it, having that amount of screen real estate going horizontally. But yeah, I've been using the XDR for the past, I think, 4 months now, and it looks great. I mean, for what color correction needs, it's the best that you can buy for the category, and I've been very happy with it, and I don't think I could go back, just because the room I'm in is so bright during the daytime that the ultra wide was only 300 nits, so I wouldn't really be able to get an accurate representation of colors, and even then the colors are not the best on the ultra wides, but I can still recommend ultra wides. I think they're great for screen real estate, and after using one for a few years, I still think that, say if Apple made an ultra wide XDR, which I don't think they will.
They won't. Yeah. But
I think
just pretend.
Yeah, I think that would be something that I would be all over.
Ultra wide iMac.
Yeah.
Well, what about comparing it to multiple screens? So I used to live like forever. I would only use multiple screens.
Yeah, same
and
here.
I haven't for quite a while now. But do you have a strong preference between ultra wide versus separating those screens? Is there a good reason to go one way or the other?
Yeah, so back when I first started YouTube, or not exactly when I first started, but when I started kind of saving enough money to put together my own desk setup and try to make it like the ultimate teenage workstation, where there would be like a PS4 or PS3 and Xbox, and like a computer on a stand, and then 2 monitors, and then I would have like HDMI switchers, so when my mom came upstairs she wouldn't see that I wasn't doing my homework, printer underneath, and like footrest, and just like tried to make like more or less wasn't really a thing. It was just trying to deck it out as much as possible. I feel like my favorite setups ever were dual monitor display setups, where there would be one screen in the middle and there would be a secondary display on the right side, and the secondary display was connected to like a gaming system. So on a weekend, if I wasn't making videos, what I would do is I would play some NHL online and just have like feet on the table and everything. And whenever there'd be like a stoppage in play, I would grab the mouse and quickly edit a little bit of my 2-minute video on the main screen. So I've thought about that. I think with the price of the XDR, I don't think I'm going to try to do a dual setup. It's just ridiculous. Like the level of video that I do is not really worthy of an XDR.
There's a decent chance that will come to, I mean, I do think Apple will do a mainstream display at this point. I'm not sure, who knows, but I think it's pretty likely. When the XDR came out, I was saying things like the best thing about this is it shows us what Apple is going to be able to do at consumer prices soon. And that already happened with the 27-inch iMac, right? We got that nano texture for half the price on the consumer computer. So I think gradually all of the stuff they learned to do in the XDR is going to trickle down to more affordable screens
for sure
pretty soon.
And even if they made like an iMac display as a standalone, I feel like that would totally be good enough for even like the video editing that I do. I mean, it's going on YouTube. They're going to ruin the footage anyway. So as a secondary display, I think it is exciting that there is that possibility that there may be a cheaper display that comes out. I mean, I'd love to go back to a secondary display setup, but most of the time, those setups are not the prettiest. They're very effective, but the way I like to have a dual display was to have one in the middle and one on the side, as opposed to, I think Marquez has two of them in the middle.
Like yeah, right. Which I'm more with you. I would always have like one is definitely secondary. Yeah. It's just over there, and it's either playing a YouTube video or stuff like that. That's even right now. Actually, what I'm doing often is I'll have my iPad off to the side. Not even doing sidecar, like it's just separately the iPad and it's playing video.
Playing
or
YouTube
it's got
videos.
Twitter open. Yeah, totally. It's just the whatever else I'm doing at the same time. So instead of a split screen, I'm doing two.
It's hard to use a 32-inch like primary display to do a lot of things at a time, especially if you're trying to run a timeline-based system. Like Final Cut takes up the entire screen on the 32-inch. So if I want to play a YouTube video or I want to load up emails, it definitely does overlap.
Sure. Yeah. I do picture-in-picture a lot, like from Safari, and it's always covering something and moving it from side to side.
For sure.
That's definitely an issue. So, okay, wait, we'll still talk about desks more, but since you brought up consoles, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the upcoming Xbox, PS5 stuff. Xbox prices were just announced.
Yeah. November 10th,
What are you going to get?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask about gaming because the only games I play are NHL, and I'm wanting to play Formula 1.
Are very specific. Okay.
Yeah, I'm very. I like when I grew up. Everything was just hockey and YouTube, and even like the new setup. I tried to bring back some of the hockey elements. The home office now has a projector, so the wall I had it painted gray, and at night I can just fire up the projector, and there's a Sonos speaker up front, and I'm able to watch a hockey game, and my XDR display is in front of me, and kind of multitask. Unfortunately, the Canucks have been knocked out, but they sure made it further than the Flames and the Oilers. So,
did you ever play hockey as a kid?
Yeah, I did. Played.
Oh, sweet.
I played road hockey, and then I played the ball hockey. The other day, I actually interviewed my old neighbor, and we were the same age and grew up together for about a decade. So he came down to the basement and he was like, man, like this basement's been used for 12 different things. Like we used to play foam ball hockey in here. I trained you how to play goalie down here and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of funny. What position did you play?
I was usually right wing.
Oh, nice. Were you a right shot?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, it's funny because I was obsessed with it when I was a teenager. And then as an adult, like I do not follow any sports.
Really?
Like I do not care about hockey anymore in the slightest, but I was fully obsessed until I stopped, which I think it was maybe like 16 when I stopped playing. And once I stopped, I fully stopped.
I was like beyond obsessed
really
for
loved
a while. It was like ridiculous. Like it was printing out game sheets, or the score sheets from every game and putting it in a binder because I thought they were going to win the cup. And I'd play rod hockey, road hockey, mini ball hockey after dinner. And then I'd play ice hockey. That was one thing I didn't do. I didn't collect
I had a lot of
cards, but I used to go to like the games locally and try to catch the pucks. And then I played goalie and player at the same time because I couldn't decide which one I liked more.
Yeah.
So that was a bit weird. But I haven't skated in like 5 years. So just been sitting on my ass and doing YouTube videos ever since.
I always wish I did. My Shay Kerwood, my cousin, who's been on the show twice. We played hockey together a lot growing up, and he still plays it today.
Really?
And I'm always like, man, that's the right idea. Like, it's so good for him. I'm like, I should have kept playing it. Anyway, this is not about tech at all.
Yeah.
I still, okay, you said not to ask you about consoles, but I just want to at least weigh in
it's
for
going
a
to
moment.
be, I only play NHL, so the game is probably not going to be optimized for the next generation of consoles, and I'm just not a good gamer. I just didn't grow up getting good at the first-person shooters and role-playing games, but I think as a tech reviewer, we're usually going to want to pick up both and try it out and decide what's going to be, like, there's not really any bias going into it. I personally use the PS4, and I'm pretty happy with it, but at the same time, I was on Xbox and PS3 for a couple of years back and forth and didn't really have an opinion. I know, like, back when I was a teenager, the biggest kind of selling point was the fact that PS4 or PS3 was free, and people who at the age of 12 or 13 didn't want to pay the extra $60, so they would go and buy the PS3. In terms of people I play with, I mean, it's not really, it's kind of divided. I mean, Trevor's on Xbox, and my buddy who lives upstairs, who I play NHL with occasionally, he's somehow ranked like 10 in the world, and he plays very casually. He's also on PlayStation. So yeah, I think PlayStation's going to be the route, but I think
so you're going to get both.
Yeah, but I think what Microsoft is doing is definitely more exciting and more compelling, just based on what it looks like right now. And the budget offering is something that I really like as well. And I think the console on the Microsoft side looks better too. And for kids, that's going to be a big factor.
Right. Well, it's the biggest split that we've seen in a long time in strategies. Like they are much more differentiated than they were in the last generation. Whereas, just take whichever one you want. You're going to be playing the exact same titles in basically the exact same way, and they're going to look pretty much the same.
For sure.
The big differentiator ended up being exclusives for PlayStation, that's why I've been sticking with PlayStation for a long time. I didn't have both in the last generation. It was, 360 is the last time I had both.
Same.
PS3 and 360. And I just didn't bother getting both last time because there's nothing for Xbox I felt like I needed. I'm over Halo. I'm over Gears of War, so like I didn't care. But this differentiation is really interesting, and especially now that the pricing's out, $300 for the more affordable Xbox. It's crazy because it's kind of being subsidized by this subscription model, right? Like the hardware is probably definitely worth more than that because it can do almost everything that the bigger. I've only read like quick articles, so forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, but I think it can do everything that the full-on Xbox can do, except the S is running at 1440 instead of 4K, which is awesome. Like that's not a huge compromise to save $200. But I think they're able to do that because they're assuming a lot of people are going to start paying the subscription. So in the end, you'll sort of end up paying more anyway.
Yeah.
So the way I've thought about this in the past with things like phones is I always say, like, you're going to pay more for your phone service in the end than the actual cost of upgrading your phone to, one
100%.
size bigger. Like, so just, spend as much as you can up front for the phone that you choose. Cause like it's a small percentage of the total cost in the long run.
Instead of doing the contract model.
So anyway, I'm going to get a PS5, not an Xbox, but just cause to me, I don't love the idea of the subscription thing. Cause sometimes I won't play for a few months. Like I won't play any games for months at a time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I want to own what I'm playing anyway. And then again, the exclusives, like there's going to be more PS5 exclusives that I'm interested in. So
it's strange how we like the philosophy towards game consoles as you grow older, though. Like when I was 14 and 15, the opinions towards the decision were just so different from today. And I mean, nowadays I don't really game that much, but even back then when I was playing casual sports games, it was even in some situations, I think when the Xbox One came out, the PS4 was impossible to find. So I ended up going Xbox One for a little bit. It's one of those things where nowadays we'd think of it a little bit differently as opposed to buying something because it's available earlier.
I don't know. I can't put myself. I'm enough further away from my teenage years than you to know what I would possibly want to do if I was still. I mean, yeah, because like, what was your first console that you were really into? Because for me, it's like N64 and the first PlayStation. That's like my glory years of video games.
Yeah, I think I feel like people my age played the N64, but my parents are very anti-game console, so it wasn't until like a family friend bought a gift, like a Game Boy Advance SP, that I got into it. But I wasn't really playing like Pokemon and stuff. I was playing Nintendogs for some reason, and then I think. And then I think the first real console that I purchased myself was a PS3, because I tricked my mom into thinking it was a CD player to watch movies, and so she didn't say anything.
I mean,
about
it was.
Yeah. I told her it was just to watch Blu-ray.
I definitely used that as leverage. For the PS2, I definitely used it as leverage. Like, well, we'll have a DVD player, because at the time, I mean, PS2 was the first like half decent DVD player you could get, and it was like the same price as most DVD players. So that was how DVDs got into a lot of people's homes. It was through the PS2.
I think the PS2 was the most fun for sure. I remember back, I had a few friends who were playing the Xbox, the original Xbox, and what I remember was the discs would take like 45 minutes to load, and we would sit there and just like walk around the house until it loads. Back then, I don't know how I had that level of patience. Nowadays, when Final Cut Pro takes more than 5 seconds, you start to slam the mouse and keyboard a little bit, and it's like, I don't know what this thing's doing again. But yeah, back then I remember the PS2 was a lot of fun, like Guitar Hero, and I think it was NHL 07 at the time, Guitar Hero. I'm trying to remember what other games I play. Rock Band was also very popular at the time, and Wii came out, and like played like Wii Sports and Rock Band. I remember the Wii not having very good games. It was just like Wii Sports was the whole reason why people bought it.
Yeah, that's what everybody played a lot of.
Yeah,
I mean, it had some good smaller titles, and Zelda was so good that sort of carried it. And some good Marios, but it's actually the same situation that the Switch is in now, whereas a few first-party titles really just hold up the whole system.
For sure.
So I don't know. And also to clarify anybody that's confused about my age right now, PlayStation 1 wasn't my first. I mean, I had an NES. That was the first console I owned. I just got really into games later with both. I had the PlayStation and the N64. Anyway, that was a long tangent about consoles, and I still want to finish a desk conversation too. So let's circle back to that. Here's something I'm kind of trying to figure out with my new one is like, right now, how much do people really end up using desk speakers versus headphones? Because in my last one, I really let the speaker be secondary. I actually I use speakers away from my desk most of the time, but when I'm working, I stick my headphones on. So the audio that I can play out of my computer isn't that important. How do you use audio with your machine?
So I'm a bit opposite on that, but I know it's kind of an unpopular opinion, but I personally hate wearing headphones. I try to wear them as little as possible, which kind of annoys the people around me because they have to listen to my voice in person and also on video. And the A-roll's
playing back
always
the same sentence over and over.
And they have to watch. We have to start watching these videos before we upload them because we've had more than a couple errors lately. But
Oops.
I use speakers almost all the time, and I've been using the same set of speakers for many years now. It's been the Audio Engine A2 Plus, and I think I've been using these since 2014 or 2015. I know some people like to go for the larger ones, like the Yamahas and all that. I just really don't want anything that large on my desk, and I'm not like trying to make the next Kygo track or something. So I don't need anything like a reference speaker or anything. I just need to be able to set my levels and kind of be able to hear how it's going to sound. I do have AirPods, and I use those when I go and grab a coffee, and on planes I'll wear like the QCs or the Bose 700s. But other than that, I try to wear headphones like as little as possible because I feel like it kind of puts you in a different world. It's very warm, and like I don't know, I don't like having the headband and everything on. I have started using AirPods a little bit more for editing because there isn't much lag at all. So, for example, if a buddy comes over and wants to watch hockey on the projector, I'll just stick like one AirPod in on one side, and I'll be cutting A-roll while the game's coming out of the speaker, sort of thing. But yeah, for the most part, I'm very speaker, and I feel like the best speaker you could buy for under $300 in general is the Audio Engine A2 Plus. We've tried stuff from Kanto, and those were around the same price point, but the sound quality just wasn't anywhere close.
I really noticed a difference in. So, okay, bad habit of mine. I've been editing a lot with my AirPods, and that's not a knock against them. You can do almost all your editing with AirPods, and it's totally fine.
For sure.
But when you're mastering the final mix, you can definitely miss things in it that are really obvious in a bigger headphone, especially things like reverb that, there's just a little bit too much in there, or just noise. There can just be like a low level of room hiss or something that you leave in because you have to really turn up the AirPods. Like, and I'm talking about AirPods Pro. Like, I'm using them all the time. I absolutely love them. They're in my ear like half the day, but it's definitely not the same level of like fidelity and clarity that you would get out of either over the ear or some good reference monitors. So it is really important if you're doing any kind of production to hear it loud at some point,
for sure,
before you send it out to the world, because there's honestly probably something you're missing. Or an issue I've had with the podcast a few times is having stereo issues where either the whole track is mixed to one side.
Yeah.
Because I was listening with one AirPod in. That's exactly how it happened twice. And I didn't notice that like one of the channels was mixed to one side or the other. So
the stereo dual mono thing and like the center.
In terms of mice, keyboards, do you like stick to the same thing? Do you keep mixing it up? Like what are your thoughts there?
For the podcast?
No, just for like in general, working at a computer, do you use the same keyboard all the time?
Oh, the
like,
keyboard. Sorry,
building. Yeah.
I thought you mentioned like mixing board or something. For keyboard, I just use the one that came with the Mac Pro, the black and silver one, and I got a ton of questions about where I bought it, and I was like, I didn't realize that. I don't think Apple sells the black and silver keyboard on its own. They sell the black one, and they also sell the white and silver one, but yeah, the silver and black one is. I guess it is only on the Mac.
It's a Pro feature, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really like the number pad though. Like I don't ever need the number pad at all.
Oh man, I love number pads. I'm totally the opposite.
I don't even know where the numbers are.
Go out. Well, no, but that's why is because you can't. Like blindfold yourself and try to touch type the numbers at the top of your screen. It's really easy to like lose your place in them. Whereas if you've got your hand resting over the numpad, if you use it, you can just do it blindly because like there's only 3 per row, and I don't know. I'm a fan of it, but it would be nice space wise to not have it, especially because I'm at a smaller desk. But
yeah, now that I'm looking at it, I just realized I don't think I've ever touched the number side of it, like beyond the general keyboard side. But the problem is I always drink water and eat at my desk, so I've spilt water on so many keyboards. I think this is like the third or fourth. I would usually use the ones that are just the white and silver Magic keyboard and the MX Master 3, but yeah, we're using this right now, and it's lasted for longer than I expected.
I really like all the Logitech stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, so the MX Master 3 I've been using I say the 3, I've been using the MX series forever.
Since the original,
college.
I think.
So yeah, it just feels like the same mouse keeps showing up in my hand, and it has been evolving, but I almost forget how much better it's gotten because it was always good, I've never had any big complaints about it.
One of the trips we did last year was to Geneva, where they have their Logitech like design facility, the R&D, and it's actually all just in one building on like a Swiss, I'd say like a engineering university kind of campus, but either way, it's like the European research facilities are all like state of the art, like glass buildings. And they kind of took us downstairs to where the engineers were working on the new MX Master 3. And one of the things was a scroll wheel where it was made out of metal, and it has like kind of with the metal, it allows it to have some sort of natural mechanism that makes it feel more natural to scroll. And they were talking about there's just some guy down there, and there's no windows, and it's super hot. And they're talking about how they've been working on it for the last year and a half. And they also have like a big foam booth where they test the RF signals of the new mouse and also compare it to their original generation. And when they took us upstairs, they also had this room where the machines just click on the mouse and scroll and keyboards and all that kind of stuff continuously. And you could just hear like hundreds of machines in the same room going off at the same time, and it's just clicking for the entire day. And they analyze how many times it's able to click before it has any faults. And I think what I found most unique about that, and also how Dyson did things in their UK facility, was even with small generational improvements from like the second generation to third generation, or in Dyson's case, the V10 to a V11 vacuum, it goes through, at least with these two companies, it goes through the entire testing process all over again as if they were making a brand new product.
The one that always blows me away, just that you can tell a lot of engineering went into it, is the scroll wheel on the Logitech, because it just feels sort of impossible the way that digitally you can change a setting and it starts clicking, and all of a sudden you have resistance in it, but then when it rolls free the free spin, the bearings are so smooth that it will just go for like 1 or 2 minutes. It'll just keep spinning as long as you want it to. And I'm always super impressed with how.
And the tracking is also the best, I think, on Logitech. It works on any surface. Right. You can use it on glass as well. But yeah, they switched PR firms recently, and the experience has been a little bit different.
No, okay. Anyway, yeah, it's nice almost like that I haven't been experimenting with mice. I feel like I should try to be aware of some other ones just so I can have a point of comparison. But for personal use, it's kind of nice to just feel like I found what works and I'm not constantly seeking something that will meet my needs.
I'd almost go
which happens with so much other stuff in tech.
I would almost go as far as to say that the MX Master line is almost like the iPad is in the tablet space, where I can't see myself switching. This is just what you
choose. Everybody uses it.
Yeah,
totally. Okay, I got one more thing that I want to hit before we wrap up, and that's Komodos, because that's what we were talking about the last episode. Is the red Komodo. You've got one. We were chatting about it via text a little bit.
A lot.
And yeah, I mean, it's on my mind. It's on my mind constantly. Yeah. And I know everybody listening, I think it'll be the most popular red camera, but I don't think it'll be, relative to a Sony or Canon. Not as many people are going to be interested, but it's on my mind. So I'm going to talk about it. Your sort of initial reaction, you were like, you're trying to cool me down on it a little bit. You're like, it's great, but can you, what are your feelings on, I don't know, like whether it makes sense as somebody's best camera that they own?
Yeah, I think like with Marquez as well, I think he got his about a week before mine. And when I messaged him, I had seen he'd been using the R5, the A7S III, and also the Komodo. And he was kind of like, obviously as a red user, he's very excited. And I was as well. Ever since the kind of leaks and teasers had been coming out since last year, I was extremely excited for it because everything about the red has been something that I enjoy and I understand, but the problem with it is obviously the weight. The thing is really heavy, and the way that we travel with it too is kind of the lightest way that we could possibly do it. We don't use like a matte box, we don't use a rod system, we don't even take off the screen or the handle or anything when we travel with it. We just like, I don't know, put it in the back of the car and take it along. But I would always like for it to be smaller. So when it was announced, it was like, these specs are great, the price point is great, but obviously the biggest skepticism is this camera really going to have the same image quality that Red is known for? And I think after early impressions, I would say it's really close. The DSMC2 lineup is obviously able to do a great job in dynamic range, and it's got the IPP2 color system, which is the main reason why I decided to pick this up, because I would be able to essentially edit the footage the exact same as I work with the A-roll. And if I say rent out the DSMC2 Red, the Dragon X, which is probably going to be the most popular rental camera compared to the Komodo, I would at least have a red camera that I can use while it's gone. So I feel like at its price, it is a great deal. But in your case, if you have the C200, a camera that is known to be very convenient and everything is just all built into one unified system, has pretty great colors. Yeah. I would say it's probably second or third if you want to compare it in the cinema world. That's kind of just my opinion. I felt like the Canons already did quite a good job of matching the red in a lot of cases when I was shooting in C-Log, and with the autofocus features and all that stuff that I was getting on the 1DX3 and what you're going to have on the R6 and the R5, the red Komodo, at least for what a YouTuber would be using it for, is a lot of parts that have to go in and still quite a few variables to have to think about. And once you add up all the cost, which in Canada I would say I'm about $12,000 to $13,000 into it. It is a hard thing to justify compared to what Canon and Sony are able to offer right now. But I would say in the cinema world, and like if you look at the Facebook group, everybody like absolutely loves it. Every time Jared pops into the group, they're like thanking him and like worshiping how good of an idea it is. And it is a great idea. But if you're looking at like the Facebook groups and like the YouTube reviews from say like filmmakers, it definitely does give a different kind of opinion. And I think with tech YouTube over the years, I've noticed everybody kind of jumps on a camera and they're telling everybody to get the same one. But then when the next best thing comes out, everybody jumps just as quickly. So
this is going to be the weirdest time for it though, because there are so many good ones.
For sure.
It's really unclear. You know, for a moment I was thinking that like the A7S III is going to become the default for a while. I bet that will be the most popular.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to pick it up. It's
and Sony's
very
having another
easy to
event
use with, which I don't know what that's going to be.
I think it's going to be a smaller
be,
A60, like it's going to be like an A60 300 or 6500 size camera that has a full frame sensor. From what I saw, I just saw like an Elite
A7C. Is that I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
something like that.
Rumors are less interesting, but it's same with Canon though. Is going to do a smaller C200. The 70C is the rumored name, and it's like a lot of the C200 features, but in a small like Komodo sized body. So
yeah,
it's all really hard.
It's not as much of like a specific ecosystem as a computer is. I think. Right. I don't know. I'm kind of split as well, and I am guilty of switching a lot in the past, but I think the Canon system was one that I thought would be an industry disruptor, the R5, but after it came out, people kind of brought it back to ground and found its flaws and how it's like it needs a generation or two before. Fast. Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't had my hands on it, but I'm still curious about it. But I've also talked to my buddy who shoots for McLaren Formula One, and he's using the 1D, and I was kind of like, isn't the R5 like the perfect camera for you because you're running around and you don't have stabilization because it's like a 3-day thing. So the amount of work that it would need to use like a Ronin S or a Ronin M while getting audio and all that stuff is just too much. But he was saying that from what he saw, the image quality was not as good as the 1DX3 or the 1DX2. So yeah, I think like the only reason why I've kind of brought out the reality of the Komodo in a lot of ways is I think your setup right now with the C200 is like a very ideal YouTuber setup. You kind of just like think about content and your audio is already all set up and you've got your C-Log. The dynamic range for most fixed scenarios is pretty good, and even for outdoors it's a documentary camera. So I'm honestly very curious to want to test out the Canon Cinema line, which I kind of skipped when we decided to go the Dragon X direction from the trade-in. But yeah, it's a lot of parts.
I think that if you're doing all YouTube, like, so mostly you're sitting in front, like a lot of it's A-roll, sitting in front of a camera, and then studio B-roll. Either Canon or Sony. I mean, both are great. FX9 looks amazing. C300 Mark III looks amazing. C200 is still great. C5. I mean, there's so many good ones right now. That does make sense from most YouTube stuff. The things that attract me to the Red is being able to take into a more cinematic context. So I think it makes sense that you'd still be attracted to some of the ease of use stuff the Canon is offering because it is easier. Yeah. What makes me keep looking at something more cinematic, there just still is a visible image quality difference. And in terms of how I have to shoot with C200, I constantly complain about that. You can't output an accurate preview of the image. So when I'm shooting, the monitor won't show me what C-Log 2 looks like. So you have to overexpose, and you can't use a LUT to show you a preview of correct exposure. And that's just not real filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like it seems crazy if you tell, or I have told real cinematographers this, and they're like, are you sure? That seems insane. Like your camera must be broken.
That's what I thought when I heard the first time that you had to delete all the footage on the Red just to get one clip off.
Well, and yeah, there's just a bunch of little stuff like that is, I don't know, kind of hard to wrap your head around. Also, the Canon LUTs to transform the C-Log 2 are like bad.
I still use them.
They look awful. Oh no, but no. So they on the Red, they're great though. It's just the C-Log 2 ones are a mess. Like they make magenta look insane. Whereas on Red, if you go through the IPP2 transform stuff, it's just right no matter what. Like I've never seen an example where it's like, oh, that you should use a different transform. The transform is never the problem. It's only like, oh, you kind of messed up your footage in some way.
For sure.
But I that's very appealing to me that there is a workflow that like this is always the way. It's never going to be an issue.
Yeah, I think I've loved the IPP2 system. And the first time I tried it out, when I first got the Red, I honestly didn't know what an IPP2 thing was. But when I saw like the low, medium, high, and no contrast and like the highlight roll off options, I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I don't really have to think about it. And there's so many ways you can use the footage. It definitely isn't the most practical for YouTube. It definitely takes up more time and headache. But like just knowing, even if you're able to nail the exposure in camera, just knowing that you have the ability to to have control over the footage after you get to your editing table it's just good peace of mind to have, and you spend less time thinking of the specifics of it, which is the main reason why we like to use the system. The Komodo though is definitely it builds up. Like there's the screen, and you have to have the SDI, and then you detap into your V mount, and you have the V mount adapter, and then you add the handle as well. It starts to look a lot like the Blackmagic.
Big. I don't know. Yeah. Circling back to the R5 and R6, though, like a big reason I think they don't make sense as an A-roll camera for a lot of people. I mean, if you're just doing sit-down YouTube, perfect, but the dynamic range will be noticeably less. And I feel like people haven't represented this well enough in a lot of the tests that I've seen. Like when I saw Maddie testing it, and I think Potato Jet as well, they're both like, the dynamic range looks great, and they're just shooting sample footage where it just wasn't stretching it.
Yeah.
Like the footage just looked nice. There wasn't any problems with it. But I was seeing, and then in other examples when they weren't talking about the dynamic range, like the clouds are clipping all over the place. Like it's very visible.
Yeah.
And it's because of C-Log 1. They're saying that they're going to add C-Log 3 to it, which doesn't have as much dynamic range as C-Log 2. And meanwhile, the Sony out of the box has more because it has S-Log 3.
Yeah.
And then, looking at any of these raw cameras. And also I was looking at more comparisons of Blackmagic to Komodo as well, because I think it's an easy comparison to make. You're like, oh, you could spend $2,500 and get exactly the same or a very similar feature set. It's not the same. 100%. It is
I
not.
saw that. I think it was on the Facebook
huge
group.
difference is there's a bunch. I mean, I've been watching like everything Komodo related, but yeah, clouds
There's a big
clip
difference.
in the Blackmagic does not have the dynamic range. It's very good. I mean, it's amazing for the price, but it's not the same. The roll off isn't there. And then the other thing is there is no filter. Wait, what's the filter that a UV filter where you can see infrared pollution? So I guess it's an infrared filter, but it's not built into Blackmagic's, and it is built into
false color.
Canon's. No. This is actually like a optical filter, and I never understood this very well until I saw the Indie Mogul video breaking it down. What will happen is that like IR pollution will start turning different colors into turning like blacks into browns or greens into black. Like if you have the wrong colors coming in a certain setup, all of a sudden your darker colors start to shift a lot, and it's really visible and bad. It's not subtle. And the thing is, it doesn't happen 80-90% of the time, but I started seeing it in example footage, and I'm like, wow, that can completely ruin a shot. It's not ruined because people maybe don't know what it's supposed to look like, but compared to clean filtered light, it's really visible. And Blackmagic's one of the few popular cinema cameras that is missing that, and you kind of take it for granted because it doesn't happen with other cameras. But I don't know. I'd recommend watching the Indie Mogul video about it because it really makes it obvious what's going on there. And the Komodo does not have that issue. The colors are much better. Yeah,
the colors are definitely there. I still need to try to push it in a more like A-cam like scenario. We've only really used it for B-cam and general test footage. A lot of times, the cameras when they come in are kind of just slotted into the workflow, and you try to find time to bring them out and really use them and learn them. But right now is just like the file related thing with Final Cut has me a little bit worried at times, but otherwise it has been a great camera. And I think, as a beta, it's
black frames,
as a beta camera, it's more than what I think we could have asked for. It works very well, and I haven't really noticed any major glitches, and they're constantly patching it. I think another beta patch just came out today, which is like a minor fix for connectivity. And I think
I forgot to say that though too. Game changer more than a lot of people have realized yet is going to be the Wi-Fi stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that you can have like multiple iPads with almost no latency Wi-Fi monitoring, so you don't need to buy a Teradek, you don't need to buy other stuff, and more than one person can be monitoring it at the same time.
Yeah.
I think you can watch it in browser. I didn't test that, but I've heard people say it. That's really, really, really good. We were shooting with the iPhone as a monitor. So for like a travel kit, I know you were saying that when you build it up, it's going to be a bit of a monster. Right now, I can't travel with my C200 really because it has to take up a huge part of my backpack, no matter what. Even the battery charger is enormous on its own. So like everything, it gets big. With a Komodo, you can tear it down so that it could fit in a backpack. You can monitor with an iPhone if you're, in like a travel scenario where you're like, okay, I got to make this as small as I can. You also can do it with the onboard monitor if you really need to. And that's just not possible with any other cameras of that size that I can think of. Even the Blackmagic, I feel like you have to build up the Blackmagic so the batteries don't last at all. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think like there's gonna be a new DJI Ronin coming out tomorrow, and I think especially in a gimbal scenario, that is going to be very effective. And I didn't realize it was that good. I did try it like once or twice, but at the end of the day, I've heard a lot of cameras say they have great Wi-Fi connectivity and remote app and all that kind of stuff, but it was always still kind of bad. The Canon one was
the first real one.
Yeah, which is like nice for a gimbal situation. So I think if we start doing like travel films again, and we're able to put the Komodo on a gimbal with 2 batteries that are internally attached and run the Wi-Fi and mount the phone on my gimbal and run around with that, I think that's going to be the delayed moment where we realize how powerful the Komodo really is.
Well, and have somebody else also connected on their phone and pulling focus via the app. Like that's the stuff that is, I don't know how, we'll see.
Yeah, like I know the Red is, the Ronin is going to have the focus mechanism as well, kind of like what they did. So I'm wondering if there's going to be support for the Red. Who knows if they're working together on that, but yeah, it's I've never used a focus puller. I'm not quite there yet. Still trying to figure out how to use a gimbal properly and like just like in general how to do a travel film. But yeah, it's I think the gimbal scenario is going to be what I'm personally most excited for. I know it's also like a drone kind of use case as well that people have been mentioning with the Komodo, but yeah, I've seen it used in many different ways on the Facebook group. Some of them have just been like massive rigs, and you've got just like a tiny. People are like joking, like, "Where's the camera?" Because the lens is like 2 feet long, and they've got the matte boxes and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think
it's also totally changed my perspective on RF mounts. By the way, which we don't have time to get into.
Yeah,
but I'm all about RF now. I'm like, I get it now. I understand why. And it's not just because of RF glass. It's because of how much you can adapt to it. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at my C200, thinking like, oh wait, I couldn't put, I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the things you're shooting now already look pretty great. So even if you can see the improvements, Justin, your channel is amazing, and everybody should go follow you and check it out right away.
I think you're. I remember you had one video that I remember outdoors. I was like, for a while I couldn't figure out how to shoot properly outdoors, like making sure I had the proper ND filters and grading it. I think you had one year where you're filming in New York, and I think I asked you which camera you're using, and I believe it was a Sony at the time. Yeah, those looked really good, and obviously like the studio stuff looks amazing as well. I've never kind of set up lighting properly, so hopefully when the studio is done, I'll try to see how to put together lighting and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's the camera world is exciting. There's a lot of stuff coming out. There's more stuff that is still going to come out. There's gimbals constantly coming out. Zion's making a new product every week for smartphones and cameras,
and the Apple event in just a few more days too. So
yeah, first of a couple apparently. So yeah, there's going to be the iPhone in October and all that stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a busy run to the end of the year, and then this year there's not going to be CES. So it's going to be interesting as to how that industry, our industry, is going to operate without CES. Whether it's going to be better or worse, because everything's going to be covered online.
I've never gone, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, you're not missing much. It's kind of it's more about the stuff around it, but the convention itself, I don't think I'm like that deep into tech to want to go to every booth and like look into everything. But yeah, it was. I kind of went there just to play with the 1DX3 at the time. Other than that, I just
for the one camera.
Yeah, it was literally the only reason why we went on the show floor. But
cool. Well, thanks again for taking the time, Justin.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
If anybody's not already following you, the links will be in the show notes. And talk to you next time.
Yeah, thanks so much. And sorry I didn't have video.
Also next time.